I didn't expect it to go like this. I had never thought of myself as someone who could be vulnerable, let alone someone who would be tested in this way. But here I was, staring at my phone screen in the dark, heart pounding in my chest, the words from my wife, Julia, still echoing in my head. It all began with something that should have been a simple conversation, but somehow, it escalated into a moment that I'm not sure I'll ever forget. I was at the gym late that evening, finishing up my usual workout. It had been a long day at work, and I needed to blow off some steam. The gym wasn't crowded, just the way I liked it. I was focused on my last set when I saw Julia's name pop up on my phone. A quick text, nothing out of the ordinary. But when I opened it, I saw the message that sent a chill down my spine. I'm going out tonight. Don't wait up. Now, Julia and I had always been fairly laid back when it came to our routines. It wasn't like her to disappear without any explanation, especially on a Tuesday night. Sure, she'd have girls' nights out now and then, but she would always give me a heads up. The abruptness of the message caught me off guard. I put the weights down, wiping the sweat from my face, and sent her a text back. Where are you going? Is everything okay? I figured a simple, caring response would do. But what came next, I wasn't prepared for. Don't worry about it. I'm fine. Just need a break. That was it. A text, devoid of any warmth, and a tone that left me uneasy. I stood there in the gym, looking at the message, wondering what had happened. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Had we been drifting? Was there something she wasn't telling me? I tried to focus on my workout, but the words kept circling in my mind. I couldn't understand why she felt the need to be so distant. Things between us hadn't been perfect, but they weren't terrible either. We hadn't fought in weeks, and we'd been having some great conversations, so why was she acting like this? An hour later, I finished my workout and made my way home. The apartment felt unusually quiet when I stepped inside. The lights were off, and Julia's things were nowhere to be seen. Her shoes weren't by the door, and there was no sign that she had come back. I texted her again. Are you okay? I'm starting to get worried. This time, there was no response. I couldn't sit still anymore. I grabbed my jacket and left the apartment, walking down the street aimlessly, trying to clear my head. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something didn't add up. We had built a life together, but I felt like I was missing something, a piece of her that I couldn't quite place. Something was happening, and I had no idea what it was. When I returned to the apartment, it was nearly midnight. Julia still wasn't home. I started to pace, checking my phone every few minutes. There was still no word from her. Just as I was about to call her, my phone buzzed. A message. It was from Julia. You're not going to tell me where to go and who to go with. I read the message twice, unsure of what to make of it. I couldn't believe what I was reading. She had never said anything like that before. Not to me. Not in a million years. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to understand what she meant, but at that moment, all I could think to respond was, okay, you're free. I felt the air in the room change as soon as I hit send. I wasn't prepared for what came next. Julia replied a few minutes later. That's not what I meant. The weight of her words hit me harder than anything that had come before. The confusion, the distance, the tension, it all came flooding back, and I knew that whatever was happening between us had just started, and it wasn't going to be easy. The next few hours felt like an eternity. I lay awake in bed, the glow of my phone screen illuminating the room. Julia's last message, that's not what I meant, kept replaying in my mind like a broken record. What the hell did she mean? What was she trying to say? It didn't make sense. I'd never seen her this distant before. She had always been straightforward with me, or at least, I thought she had been. But now, I was left wondering if I had missed something. At around 2 a.m., I finally fell into a restless sleep, but even then, I kept dreaming about her. The dreams were strange, unsettling. Images of her standing in a crowded room, laughing with strangers while I watched from a distance. I woke up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, the feeling of anxiety still lingering in my chest. I glanced at the clock, 5:15 a.m. No text, no call. When I finally drifted back to sleep, I didn't hear Julia come home. By the time I woke up the next morning, she was already gone. The apartment was eerily silent. I tried calling her twice, but she didn't pick up. There was no text, no explanation, nothing. I couldn't sit around any longer, so I went to work. I couldn't focus on anything. My mind kept drifting back to Julia and what had happened the night before. Why did she seem so distant? What had changed between us? There were no signs, nothing to indicate this kind of sudden shift. At lunch, I checked my phone again. Still nothing. My heart sank. Maybe she needed space. Maybe this was her way of processing something she couldn't bring up directly. Or maybe she was already done with me. The thought sent a pang through my chest. As the afternoon dragged on, I found myself staring at my phone, waiting for it to buzz, waiting for Julia to reach out. But she didn't. I spent the entire day caught in a haze of uncertainty, unsure whether to be patient or to push for answers. It felt like the longest day of my life. Finally, just as I was about to leave the office, I got a text. My stomach dropped when I saw it was from Julia. But this time, the message was different. "I'm at the bar with friends," it read. "I just need some time." I didn't know how to respond. Should I be angry? Should I be worried? Should I just let her have her space? I decided to wait a little longer before responding, hoping she would call me. She never did. When I got home that evening, the apartment was still empty, just like it had been the night before. But now, the silence felt heavier. I paced around the apartment for a while, trying to clear my head. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, but I had no idea what. After a few more hours passed with no sign of her, I sent another text. "Are you coming home tonight?" Her reply came almost instantly. "Don't wait up. I'll be late." It wasn't the response I wanted to hear, but I didn't know how else to react. She was distant, colder than she had been in years. Something had changed, but she wasn't telling me what. It was like she was slipping further away, and I had no control over it. I didn't hear from Julia again that night. As I sat in the dim light of the living room, the reality of it all hit me. We weren't talking anymore. Whatever we had, it felt like it was crumbling, piece by piece, and I had no idea how to fix it. The next morning, she was still gone. I didn't know what to do anymore. This wasn't the woman I married. This wasn't the relationship I thought we had. It felt like I was watching her slip away, and I didn't even know why. By the time the weekend rolled around, I was on edge. The space between Julia and me was growing wider by the day, and I still couldn't figure out what had caused it. The silence in the apartment was unbearable. It wasn't the comfortable quiet we used to share, but a heavy, oppressive silence that felt like a thick fog I couldn't escape. Every corner of the place seemed to whisper that something was wrong, but no matter how hard I searched for answers, I couldn't find them. Saturday morning, I woke up early, hoping that maybe this time Julia would come back and explain. But when I checked my phone, there were no new messages. No calls. Nothing. It was like she had vanished from my life overnight. My heart began to race, my thoughts spiraling. Was she seeing someone else? Was she really just trying to get away from me? I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling in my gut that told me I was losing her, but I wasn't ready to admit it yet. I decided to take a walk, hoping the fresh air would clear my head. The streets were bustling with people enjoying their Saturday, but I couldn't shake the emptiness I felt. I walked for hours, not really paying attention to where I was going. It wasn't until I passed by a cafe that I saw something that stopped me in my tracks. There, sitting at a table outside, was Julia. She was laughing, genuinely laughing, with a man I had never seen before. My heart skipped a beat, and I found myself frozen in place, staring at them. The man was leaning in slightly, his hand resting casually on the table, and Julia was smiling like I hadn't seen her smile in weeks. It wasn't just any smile, either. It was the kind of smile I hadn't seen in a long time. The kind she used to give me when we were first dating. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I wanted to turn and walk away, to pretend I hadn't seen anything, but my feet wouldn't move. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, watching them. I didn't know what to do. Was I supposed to confront her? Was it too soon to make accusations? My mind was a mess of confusion and jealousy, and I hated myself for it. Eventually, I forced myself to leave, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't shake the image of them together. The way she looked at him was different from the way she looked at me. There was a lightness in her that I hadn't seen in months, and it made something inside me snap. I wasn't sure if it was anger or sadness or both, but all I knew was that I couldn't stay in that moment any longer. I went back to the apartment, and for the first time in days, I didn't wait for her. I didn't check my phone every few minutes, hoping for a text or a call. I knew it was pointless. Whatever was happening between us, it wasn't going to get better by sitting around and waiting. I decided that it was time to confront her. But not yet, not until I knew for sure what was going on. Later that night, Julia finally came home. She opened the door quietly, as if trying not to disturb the air of tension that had been building up between us. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there, watching her, trying to gauge her mood, trying to figure out if she was going to bring up the cafe incident or if I would have to be the one to speak first. But she didn't mention it. Instead, she walked past me, heading straight to the bedroom. "I'm tired," she said, her voice flat. "I'll talk to you later." I didn't know how to respond. The woman I married, the one who would always sit down and talk things out, was gone. She was replaced by someone I barely recognized, and I was left standing in the living room, feeling more alone than I ever had before. The next few days were a blur. Julia came and went as she pleased, barely saying anything to me, barely acknowledging my presence. It felt like we were strangers living in the same apartment, but with a history that neither of us was willing to face. I couldn't understand what had happened to us, to her. She had always been independent, but this was something different. One evening, as I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, I heard the sound of the front door opening. It was late, later than usual, and I immediately felt a knot form in my stomach. Julia walked in, her eyes red, her face pale. She didn't say anything. She just stood there for a moment, as if gathering her thoughts, before walking past me without even a glance. I couldn't let it go any longer. I stood up and followed her down the hallway to our bedroom. "Julia, we need to talk. You can't just keep shutting me out like this," I said, my voice firm but filled with frustration. She didn't respond at first, but I could see her shoulders stiffen. Finally, she turned to face me, her expression unreadable. "I don't know what you want from me anymore," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not the person you think I am, and maybe I never was." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. It was like she had just ripped the rug out from under me, and I was left falling, unsure of what was real anymore. I had no idea what she meant by that. What was she trying to tell me? Was she really saying that everything we had, everything we built, was a lie? "Then what are we doing here, Julia?" I asked, my voice shaking. "If you don't want to be with me anymore, just tell me." She stared at me for a long moment, the silence between us unbearable. And then, with a sigh, she said something I never expected to hear. "I need space, Ethan. I need to figure things out. And I can't do that while I'm still tied to you." Her words struck me so deeply that I could barely breathe. What had happened to us? Where had we gone wrong? And most importantly, was this really the end? The silence that followed her words was deafening. My mind was spinning. I didn't know how to respond. The weight of what Julia had just said felt heavier than anything I'd ever heard. I needed space. She needed to figure things out. For a moment, I just stood there, my heart racing, my thoughts scrambling to make sense of what was happening. Space. I managed to choke out, my voice barely audible. I couldn't believe it. She wanted space? After everything we had built together? We had been married for years. We had shared our lives, our dreams, and now she was telling me that it was all too much for her? "Julia, you're not making any sense," I said, my voice trembling. "We've been through so much together. You don't just walk away from that." She shook her head, her eyes filled with a mixture of frustration and sadness. "I'm not walking away, Ethan. I just need time. Time to think. Time to breathe." I didn't know if I could take it. Every word she said felt like a dagger to the chest. "You can't just ask for space after everything. We're married. You're my wife. We're supposed to work through things together. What happened to that?" Julia took a step back, her face clouded with indecision. "I don't know how to explain it," she said, her voice soft now, almost like she was pleading. "It's not about you, Ethan. It's about me. I don't even know who I am anymore. I've lost myself, and I don't know how to find my way back." Her words left me paralyzed. I couldn't process it. I had always seen Julia as this strong, confident woman. We had built a life together. We had faced obstacles before, but we had always come out stronger. But now, she was telling me she had lost herself? That she didn't even know who she was anymore? I felt a wave of panic rising in me, and I tried to push it down, but it was impossible. "What do you mean? You're my wife, Julia. You're not alone in this. You're not lost. We can figure it out together." She didn't meet my eyes. Instead, she stared at the floor, her hands twisting together as if she were trying to gather her thoughts. After a long pause, she finally spoke again, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't think I can do this anymore, Ethan. I don't think I can keep pretending." "Pretending?" I felt my chest tighten. "Pretending? What do you mean by that?" Julia's eyes lifted to meet mine for the first time since we started this conversation. Her gaze was steady, but there was something in her eyes that I couldn't quite place. Regret, maybe, or fear. I've been pretending for a while now, she said, her voice cracking slightly. Pretending that everything's fine, that I'm happy, that I know who I am. But I don't. I'm not happy, Ethan. I haven't been for a long time. The words hit me like a slap. I had been so focused on trying to keep everything together, on making sure that our life looked perfect from the outside, that I hadn't even noticed how much she was suffering, how much she had been hiding from me. I had failed her in ways I didn't even know. I felt my legs weaken beneath me. I stumbled backward, trying to steady myself against the wall. How long, Julia? How long have you been feeling like this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, as if speaking louder would make the reality of it worse. She paused for a moment, her eyes filled with uncertainty. A long time, she said softly. Maybe even longer than I realize. I felt like I was suffocating. My mind raced through every moment of our relationship, trying to pinpoint where things had gone wrong. Was it something I did? Was it me? Was I not enough for her? The questions kept flooding in, each one more overwhelming than the last. But all I could do was stare at her, helpless. You never told me. I whispered, my voice cracking with emotion. You never said anything. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Julia shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. I didn't know how to. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to ruin everything, Ethan. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. She had been protecting me. In her own twisted way, she had been trying to spare me from the truth. But now the truth was out, and it was tearing me apart. I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't know how to make it right. For a few moments, there was nothing but silence. The weight of what she had said hung in the air like a storm cloud. I didn't know what to do. What could I do? Julia, please, I said, my voice breaking. You can't just give up on us. We've been through too much. We've built this life together. I won't give up on you. I can't. Her gaze softened, and for a brief moment, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with. But then the moment passed, and the wall she had built around herself came crashing back down. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Ethan. I don't know if I can keep pretending that everything's okay when it's not. The words stung, but I couldn't ignore them. She had made up her mind. And no matter how much I wanted to fight, no matter how much I wanted to hold on to the past, I knew deep down that I couldn't force her to stay. Julia turned away from me, her back to me now. I felt the finality of it. This was it. Our marriage was unraveling right before my eyes, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I didn't say anything else. I just watched her walk out of the room, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely alone. The weight of her absence settled in around me, and I realized just how much I had lost. The days after Julia walked away from me that night felt like a blur. The apartment was still, almost suffocating in its silence. I woke up each morning hoping that maybe it had all been a bad dream, but the cold, empty space beside me in bed was a constant reminder that it wasn't. Julia was gone, physically and emotionally, and no matter how much I tried to reach out, nothing seemed to change. I tried calling her, sending her messages, hoping that she would pick up or reply, but there was nothing. She had completely shut me out. It felt like I was a ghost in my own life. At work, I couldn't focus. My mind kept drifting back to her. What had happened to us? What went wrong? Was there someone else? The doubt crept in constantly, gnawing at me, making me question everything. I had no answers, only questions that seemed to have no end. It was like I was walking through a fog, unable to see clearly. Every part of me wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, but I knew deep down that I was just prolonging the inevitable. Julia needed space, and no matter how much I resisted, she had made up her mind. The apartment felt colder every day. I could no longer find comfort in the things that once brought me peace. Our favorite books on the shelf, the pictures on the walls, the little trinkets she had left around the place. They all felt like remnants of a life that no longer existed. I started to find myself just sitting there, staring at the walls, wondering how things had gone from a solid foundation to complete chaos in the blink of an eye. Then, one evening, for days after Julia had walked out, I got a call from her. My heart skipped a beat as I saw her name flash across my screen. I froze for a moment, unsure of whether to answer or let it go to voicemail. But I knew I couldn't avoid it any longer. I picked up the phone, my breath shallow, my hands shaking. Hey, Julia's voice came through the line. quiet, almost hesitant. It sounded like she had been crying. Ethan, I need to talk. I didn't know what to say. The tension that had been building between us for days now seemed to crack open, leaving me with a mix of emotions I couldn't even begin to process. I don't know what to say, Julia, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I've been waiting for you to reach out. I've been waiting for you to come back, to tell me what happened. There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, hear the hesitation in her voice. I didn't want to hurt you, Ethan, she finally said, her words slow and deliberate. But I had to be honest with myself. I had to be honest with you. I can't keep pretending anymore. And I can't keep living like this. Her words felt like another blow to the chest, and I could barely catch my breath. What do you mean, living like this? I asked, my voice cracking. You're my wife. This is what we promised each other. Through everything, we were supposed to be there for each other. I know, Julia replied, her voice shaking. But I don't feel like I'm here anymore, Ethan. I feel like I'm just going through the motions. I'm not the person you married, and I don't think I ever was. I've been holding on to this idea of us, this idea of who we were, but it's not real anymore. And I'm scared. Her words hit me hard, harder than anything she'd said before. I wasn't sure if it was the truth I was hearing, or if she was just trying to convince herself that it was over. I wanted to argue, to fight for us, to tell her that we could fix it, that we could find our way back to each other. But something inside me told me it was pointless. She had already made up her mind. Julia, please, I begged, my voice desperate. Please don't say that. We've been through so much. We've built this life together. Don't just throw it all away. I'm not throwing it away, Ethan, she replied softly. But I can't stay in something that's only hurting us both. I need to find myself. I need to figure out who I am without you, without this marriage. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I knew she was right. She needed space. She needed to figure things out. But the thought of losing her, of everything we had slipping through my fingers, was unbearable. There was a long silence between us. I didn't know what else to say. I wanted to beg her to come back, to take it all back, but I knew that wasn't the answer. So what does this mean? I finally asked, my voice low and defeated. What do we do now? I don't know, Julia said quietly. I need time. I need space to think. And I think you do too. The finality of her words hit me like a ton of bricks. She was telling me that we needed time apart, not just from each other, but from everything. I didn't know how to cope with that. I didn't know how to live in a world where Julia wasn't by my side. Okay, I said, my voice barely audible. I understand. And with that, she ended the call. No more words. No more explanations. Just silence. The silence after that call was different than before. It was deeper, darker, like the last nail in the coffin of what we once had. I didn't know how to fill the emptiness. I didn't know how to move forward, or if I even could. All I knew was that I had lost something precious, something that I would never get back. Julia needed space. And as much as I hated it, I had to let her go. The days that followed Julia's call were nothing short of torturous. The silence between us was deafening, a constant reminder that everything had changed, that the life we had built together was no longer the same. I woke up each morning in the same apartment, but it didn't feel like home anymore. The absence of her presence was more overwhelming than I could have imagined. The familiar sights, the coffee cup she left on the counter every morning, the shoes scattered near the door, the quiet hum of the television in the background when she was here, were now nothing but painful reminders of what I had lost. I tried to keep busy, to distract myself from the constant ache in my chest, but it was impossible. I went to work, but it felt like a dream. The people around me were going about their lives, oblivious to the turmoil I was living through. Every conversation felt shallow. Every task felt insignificant. Julia's face lingered in my mind constantly. Her smile, her laugh, the way she would light up a room, gone. The distance between us had grown so vast that it felt like we were in different worlds, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't close the gap. One evening, after another long and exhausting day at work, I came home to an unexpected sight. Julia's car was parked outside. For a brief moment, I stood there in the doorway, unsure whether to go inside. My mind raced with 1,000 questions. Was she here to talk? Was she coming back? Or was this just another visit to pick up her things? I had no idea what to expect, and the uncertainty gnawed at me. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Inside, the apartment was as quiet as ever, but there was something different about it now. It felt unfamiliar. A part of me wanted to run, to escape the tension, but I couldn't move. I walked into the living room, and there she was. Julia. She was sitting on the couch, her eyes downcast, her hands folded in her lap. It was like she had been waiting for me, like she knew I would eventually come home. "Hey," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. She didn't look up at me immediately, and the silence stretched between us, heavy and thick with unspoken words. "Hey," I replied, my throat tight. I wanted to say something more, something profound, but I didn't know how. What are you doing here?" She looked up then, her eyes searching mine, and I saw something there. Something fragile, something I hadn't seen in a while. It was like she was fighting with herself, torn between the need to say what was on her mind and the fear of what it might mean. "I don't know," she said, shaking her head. "I've been thinking a lot, Ethan, and I think I made a mistake. I think I left too soon." The words hit me like a wave, but I couldn't let myself hope. Not yet. Not until I understood what she meant. "What do you mean, too soon?" I asked, my voice steady despite the torrent of emotions inside me. "You said you needed space. You said you needed time to figure things out. What changed?" Julia sighed and rubbed her temples. "I don't know. I don't know what changed. But I've been thinking about everything we've been through. And I realized that I've been running away from the wrong things. I thought I needed to escape, to figure out who I was without you. But now, I'm not sure if that's what I really wanted. I think I was just scared." Her admission hit me like a punch. It wasn't a full answer, but it was something. It was the first crack in the wall she had built around herself. "Julia, I'm not perfect," I said quietly, my voice almost pleading now. "I've made mistakes. I've probably hurt you in ways I don't even realize. But we can work through it. We can fix this. But you have to want to." She was quiet for a long moment, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. She was torn between the life she had with me and the life she thought she needed to create on her own. I couldn't blame her for that. I had felt lost before too, and I had tried to find myself in other ways. But the truth was, I didn't want to lose her. I didn't want to lose us. "I don't know if I can just jump back in, Ethan," she said finally, her voice trembling. "I don't know if I can go back to the way things were. I don't know if I even know what that means anymore." Her words were like a dagger, and yet I couldn't stop myself from holding onto the small sliver of hope that was left. "What do you want, Julia?" I asked, stepping closer to her. "Do you want to try again? Do you want to see if we can rebuild? Because I'm willing to try. I'm willing to fight for us, for everything we had." She looked up at me then, and I saw the tear that slipped down her cheek. "I don't know," she whispered. "I don't know what I want anymore." The uncertainty in her voice cut through me. I had always been the one to try to keep everything together, to be the stable one, but now I felt like I was drowning. We were both adrift in a sea of confusion, and I wasn't sure if either of us could find our way back. "I don't want to lose you," I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. "But I can't keep waiting for you to decide. I need to know what this is, what we are." Julia stood up then, her eyes filled with sorrow and indecision. "I don't know if I can give you the answer you want," she said softly. "But I'll try. I need more time. Please." Her words were like a knife to my heart, but I nodded, accepting the reality of it. "I'll give you all the time you need," I said, though every part of me wanted to scream, to demand that she make a decision. But I knew I couldn't. Not like this. She didn't say anything more. She just walked past me, heading toward the door, but before she left, she turned back one last time. "I don't know what's going to happen, Ethan, but I need you to know, this isn't easy for me. It's not just about you. It's about me too. And I don't know if I'll ever have the answers." With that, she walked out, leaving me standing in the doorway, feeling more lost than I ever had before. The days after Julia left that night blurred into one long, endless stretch of confusion and waiting. I had told her I'd give her the time she needed, and I meant it. But as each day passed, the space between us grew colder, and the emptiness in the apartment felt heavier. I tried to distract myself. I went to work, hung out with friends when I could, but everything felt like a half-hearted attempt to fill the void she had left behind. Her absence lingered in every room, every corner. Her things were still here, her coat draped over the chair by the door, her perfume on the bathroom counter, a book she had been reading on the coffee table. Every little thing felt like a painful reminder that she was still gone, still unreachable. and I was left to grapple with a future I had never imagined for us. I hadn't heard from her for a few days after our conversation. She'd said she needed time, and I gave it to her. But as the silence stretched on, I began to feel like I was suffocating. I had given her all the space I could, but it was starting to feel like I was the one who was drowning in it. I spent hours thinking about the life we had shared, the good moments, the bad, and everything in between. Was it all a lie? Had we both just been going through the motions, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't? I couldn't stop thinking about her last words. I don't know if I'll ever have the answers. That sentence haunted me. Was she really unsure about us? Or was she just trying to spare me from the truth? I found myself staring at my phone every few minutes, waiting for a message, a call, anything. But there was nothing, just more silence. It felt like I was trapped in this limbo, unsure of where things were headed or if they were headed anywhere at all. Then, on a quiet Thursday afternoon, when I least expected it, I received a text. It wasn't from Julia, but from an unknown number. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it, hoping, praying that it was her reaching out, ready to talk. But it wasn't. The message was brief, and it sent a cold chill through me. I think it's time we had a conversation. Meet me tonight at 7. My stomach churned. It wasn't a message from Julia, but the uncertainty of it, the vague nature of the request. It felt like it was leading me into something I wasn't prepared for. Who was this? And why now? My first instinct was to ignore it, but something about it pulled me in. I had no idea what this conversation would entail, but I knew I couldn't back down. Not now. Not when I was this close to understanding what had really been happening. I texted back quickly, my fingers trembling as I typed. Who is this? The response came almost immediately. We'll talk in person. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. It had to be Julia's friend, or someone who knew what was going on. But what did they want from me? Why the secrecy? Why now? By the time 7 p.m. rolled around, I was a bundle of nerves. I got dressed, checked myself in the mirror, and for the first time in days, felt like I was doing something important. I grabbed my keys and left the apartment, my mind running wild with possibilities. As I drove to the address and the text, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to step into something that would change everything. When I arrived, the place was quiet, tucked away in a dimly lit corner of the city. It was a small bar, nothing fancy, but the air inside was thick with a strange tension. I walked in slowly, scanning the room. There were a few people scattered around, sitting at tables or leaning against the bar, but my eyes locked on the person sitting in the far corner. It was her. Julia was sitting there, alone, looking more distant than I had ever seen her. She was dressed simply, her hair pulled back into a messy bun, but there was something in her eyes that made my heart drop. I could see it. She was lost, torn, uncertain. I walked over slowly, unsure of what to say, what to do. The moment I sat down across from her, the air seemed to shift. It was like time slowed down. She didn't speak at first. She just stared at the table, her fingers tapping nervously on the surface. I waited, but she didn't say anything, so I spoke first. Why did you bring me here, Julia? My voice was steady, though my insides were anything but. Why this? Why now? She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of regret and pain. I don't know, she said quietly. I need to talk to you, Ethan. I can't keep running away from everything, from you. But I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to make it right. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. Make it right. Julia, I'm not asking for you to fix anything. I'm just asking for the truth. What do you want? What is it that you need? I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me, but I tried to keep it in check. Because I can't keep living like this, not knowing what's going on. I can't keep pretending that everything's fine when it's not. I know, she whispered, her voice trembling. I know, and I'm sorry. I've been selfish. I've been so caught up in my own confusion that I didn't see how much it was hurting you. But I don't know if I can go back. I don't know if I can be the person you want me to be. I don't know if I'm capable of that anymore. Her words stung. Every single one of them felt like a knife. I wasn't sure what hurt more. The fact that she was so uncertain or that she was so sure that we couldn't make it work. I don't want to lose you, Julia, I said, my voice breaking. But if you're not sure about us, if you can't see a future together, then what am I supposed to do? I can't just sit here, waiting for you to decide. She closed her eyes, and I saw a tear slip down her cheek. I don't know if I can give you what you need anymore, she whispered, the weight of her words crushing me. I felt like I was drowning in her uncertainty, in her pain. And for the first time in my life, I realized that sometimes, no matter how hard you fight, some things aren't meant to be fixed. Some things just break. "I'm sorry, Ethan," she said softly. "I'm so sorry." The silence between us stretched, hanging in the air like a heavy cloud, suffocating everything around us. My chest felt tight, and I could barely breathe as I looked at Julia. But then, something changed. It was subtle at first, a shift in the way she looked at me, a softness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. The weight of the moment seemed to lift, just for a second, and I felt a flicker of hope. "I don't want this to be the end, Julia," I said, my voice low but determined. "I've spent too much time wondering what went wrong. But I don't want to keep wondering. I want to work through it. I want us to find a way to move forward." She blinked, as if surprised by my words, but then she nodded slowly, her expression softening. "I've been so scared, Ethan. Scared of losing myself. Scared of not knowing who I am without this relationship, without you. But I've realized, maybe I've been looking for answers in the wrong places. Maybe the answer isn't about finding myself alone. Maybe it's about finding us again. Together." Her words, so simple yet so profound, hit me harder than anything else she had said. The realization that she wasn't giving up, that she was willing to try again, made something inside me break open. I had spent so much time holding on to what we had, afraid to let go, afraid to face the possibility of losing her. But in that moment, I understood. Sometimes, it's not about holding on to what was. It's about creating something new, together. I reached across the table and gently took her hand in mine. "We can do this, Julia. We don't have to have all the answers right now. We just have to be willing to try. Together." She squeezed my hand, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I want that too, Ethan. I want to try. I don't want to keep running. I don't want to lose you." And for the first time in what felt like forever, we both smiled. A real, honest smile, filled with hope and possibility. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't clean or easy, but it was a start. It was the beginning of something new. That night, as we walked out of the bar together, side by side, I realized something I hadn't understood before. Relationships aren't about perfection. They're about growth. About being willing to face the tough moments, to fight through the uncertainty, and to still choose each other in the end. We didn't have all the answers, but we had each other. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. And as we walked down the street, our hands intertwined, the world around us seemed to open up with possibilities. Whatever came next, we were ready. Together.